All right, it's 4 o'clock on Thursday. It's time for the Real Estate Happy Hour. I hope everybody's having an awesome week. Hey, it's that time. It's going to be another awesome show today. David is actually up in New York City, and he'll be joining us here in just a second here. Give him time to join us, and hope everybody's having a great week. It's actually cold here in Birmingham. We're coming up on, what is this, really the end of the first week of March, and cold, and but daylight savings time here this weekend, so that'll be interesting. Hey, we got a good show today. We're going to be talking about, Kylie Jenner. Kylie Jenner is a billionaire. Who would believe it? Forbes came out with their list this week. Let's see, I'm going to get David. All right. And I'll tell you what else we're doing in just 1 second after we get him added here. Let's see if we can get him. He may be shocked. There he is, the man.
Man, live and in color.
Man, you are in New York City. Tell us about it.
Man, it's cold. I'm telling you what, it's awesome, but it's very cold. I mean, talking about 25, 30 degrees here.
Well, I was just saying it was cold here in Birmingham, but I guess nothing on the Big Apple, huh?
Man, you got to bundle up out here. So went for a little walk today, only about 30 minutes or so, and just freezing.
Man,
Came back in.
Well, you and I were talking on the phone, and we were talking about, expensive real estate. You staying in the high rent district.
Yeah, man, we're just a little bit above Soho here, and I did get on to Zillow. I checked that out after you told me a little while ago, and there's not much under $3 million.
$3 million.
I mean, there was like 6,000 square feet for $15 million. But we are staying here. This area is called the Bowery. It's the Bowery Hotel. It's really nice. It's, old, very, very cool looking stuff. But, this city's just amazing because, I mean, just building on top of building. There's construction everywhere. They're tearing up the street everywhere. Yeah. And the first night we went to dinner at this place called Beauty in Essex. And literally the front of it was a pawn shop. So when you walk up on it, you walk up on it. It's a pawn shop, and you walk through the little 10 feet to 10, 15 feet, and then there's this huge restaurant in behind the pawn shop. It was interesting.
Who would know to even go in, I guess, right?
Well, no, unless you've been here, you don't know about the place.
Well, we were getting ready to talk about it, but we'll go ahead and start the show here. And, Kylie, we talked about it about 4 months ago that she was on her way to being a billionaire, but Kylie Jenner is a billionaire according to Forbes.
Well, it's $907 million from her cosmetic line. And I was reading that article. It looked like she doesn't even do any marketing. Like, she doesn't pay for any marketing. She's got, 120 million followers.
It's just crazy. She just says something and it happens.
It is. And I think that's the first time that anything like that has happened where there hasn't been any money spent on marketing and has such success for that company. It's amazing. 21 years old, right?
Yeah, I mean, yes. I mean, 21. And the other thing, the big debate right now is whether or not she claims to be self-made. I agree with her in the sense that, sure, she started with a little bit of a head start, but so do a lot of millionaires. Not many billionaires make it there without a little chutzpah to them.
Right. Yeah. Certainly she had a good, certainly she had opportunities. She had money. She had people that knew her family. Obviously those things help, but yeah, she has definitely worked on this social media following.
I mean, if you look at it, it all started with a sex tape by her sister. So you don't get any more self-made than that. Oh
yeah, yeah. So, I don't know how many stories are going to start that way, but I'm sure we'll find out, huh?
Oh, absolutely. Hey, big news out of Southwest Airlines. Southwest now is flying to Hawaii. Can you believe it?
Yeah, I think I saw some of those headlines. And interesting that I think that the expenses are pretty high for that route, and I think that's kind of a challenge to Southwest, isn't it?
Yeah, well, they're of course coming out with marketing $49 fares from the West Coast. The biggest thing, though, is going to be, you probably notice if you're listening in the Birmingham or anywhere on the East Coast, you go on the app, you go wherever, and you can't get a ticket. You can't just buy a ticket to Hawaii from Birmingham. And I'm here to tell you the reason. And the reason is Southwest does not do red. I almost said redhead, but red eye flights. And because of that, most of these they're mostly overnight flights back from Hawaii. So in order to leave there, you would have to leave at like 5 in the morning and hope to connect. And so there's really not a good connection back to the East Coast. So you're going to have to, if you're planning on going out there, you're going to have to go to, say, fly from here to Vegas, here to Austin, I think was as far east as they go.
Okay. Yeah. That'll be a challenge flying from Birmingham to Hawaii, you're certainly not doing it for $49.
No, not from Birmingham, but cheaper. But now, one thing that, we talked about before, the companion pass we talked about, that's where it's going to come in really handy, is that you'll be able to fly the companion for free. But anyway, Mario Neves, I hope I didn't botch that up. Yeah, he wanted to know where you're at, David.
I'm in New York City, just a little bit it's called the Bowery District, maybe, just a little bit north of Soho. Just up here for the last couple of days and through the weekend, and enjoying the city. Really, it's nice.
Living the dream.
Man, it's just busy. It's just busy. So many people here.
By the way, did you see Lending Tree just came out with a study they just released about, they were looking at the difference between renting and buying a home, and they looked at the average median mortgages, price people pay for a mortgage, and the average price that people pay for rent, and they looked all over. Now, they're taking the greater metro Birmingham area, they took the greater metro everywhere, if you will, and in the Birmingham market, there was only a difference with rents and a mortgage of $11. I was kind of surprised by that.
Right, so they're saying the cost is about the same between mortgage and rents, huh?
Yeah, so the average rent was $11 more. So just kind of
about the same, yeah. That's very interesting.
I would also say that that's very hyper local, because we got price points all over the map here in Birmingham. So I'm quite certain if you go to Mountain Brook that difference is not there anymore.
Yeah. Well, I know that the whole rent mentality is been talked about a whole lot more that's coming back. And when you told me to go to Zillow and look up some prices out here, I know rent is probably prevalent here in New York.
Yeah. Can you imagine? David, I don't think that you and I could go in together and even bring Michael Bruno with us and actually afford to buy a house.
Well, I don't know. You got Bruno, though. You throw him in there. That changes everything.
Absolutely, man. But so anyway, it was interesting to see. I mean, Miami was the widest margin, where it was actually cheaper to, by far, it was cheaper to buy than it was even closed on. Rent was just so high.
Yeah.
And the opposite was Louisville, Kentucky. So anyway.
Louisville, Kentucky.
That's right. All right, moving on. David, we got 14 common mistakes for first-time home buyers. Well, look, we can throw out the word first-time because there's so many buyers that act like first-time home buyers that have bought their fifth house.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of, obviously you can Google, you can research, you can do whatever you want looking into this process, but there's still going to be some things to get left out. And number one was not getting pre-approved. Yeah. I think that's a big deal. I mean, to not, especially for young people, first-time home buyers a lot of times are going to be younger. If you're not familiar with your credits and you don't know what the monthly payments are going to be or how much cash is needed, there is absolutely no point to look at a house, right?
Yeah, none. I mean, and what is that seller going to know about you if that agent doesn't have the ability to immediately send something over to you, meaning the selling agent or the listing agent rather?
Yeah. So when you submit that offer, I mean the seller has no idea, especially in this competitive market. They're going to want to know that you've at least looked into that option first and and know, what we're getting into, that we have a serious buyer and that they're going to take their house off the market for a serious pre-approved buyer, right?
Absolutely. And I think too, you've talked about before, but so that some people understand, what is the main difference between pre-approval and an approval letter, or the next?
You mean pre-qualified and pre-approved?
There you go.
Yeah. So pre-qualified is basically just a conversation. I always say pre-qualified is just a conversation, a phone call, where we pull credit. You tell me you've got the money in the bank, and you tell me about your income. So we do some quick math, figure things out. The pre-approval part is when we actually have W-2s, pay stubs, bank statements. So we have verified that information, everything that we'll need for the file. We've actually verified that. And it's not just a conversation where you tell me things. We've actually looked at pay stubs, W-2s, bank statements, and verified that information.
David, we've had it come up in the last few weeks with folks you've even talked to. A lot of folks don't want to have that credit pulled at the early stages of buying, but why is it okay for them to go ahead and do that?
Well, I mean, people don't want to have their credit pulled because it does technically bring down your score a few points, but that credit score is a vital piece of information. I mean, it's the number one thing. That's the place we start to figure out what you're qualified for and what your buying power is going to be, is that credit score. So there's really no point. I mean, you're completely wasting time without pulling that credit report.
Yeah. Well, unless you know for sure. I mean, the other thing we hear is, oh, well, I check my Credit Karma, which is great. I love Credit Karma, but it's not the same.
Yeah. So, and the only people that know for sure have credit scores of 800. Okay. And if your credit score is 800, then me pulling your credit's not going to affect anything. So nobody knows for sure is my point. There's no point. You're wasting time without pulling that credit.
Right. Number two, moving on. The other mistake they use is not using a buyer's agent, real estate agent. And, one of the biggest things, I know it's tough when you see a sign and you see an agent's name, you're dying to call that number right now and get that information. But David, why is that a mistake?
Well, I mean, you see a lot of people that want to go to the houses and check them out and just talk to the listing agent and have them put all the paperwork together. But that listing agent, that the sign that's in the yard, they are representing the seller. Okay. And they're going to try to get top dollar for the seller. It's not that they're not going to do a great job for you as well, but they are representing the seller. So, think that through. There's several parts of the contract that you need help with that I just wouldn't advise doing on your own. I mean, there's so many things.
Especially at new construction, because I tell you what, new construction is a trap if you let it, because they're in there and there's some great people in that business, but they are 1,000% representing and getting a paycheck from one person. It is not the buyer.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I'll give you a small example on new construction. Something that I see typical is that, because in the state of Alabama, our attorney and title fees are split in half. Okay. And let's say on let's just ballpark $300,000 purchase price, that could be maybe $1,500, maybe $2,000, right?
Correct.
So half of that to you would be $1,000, just for round numbers. So sometimes on a new construction, those contracts say that the attorney and title is not split. So that's a difference. If we're talking about negotiating closing costs, that's a difference of $1,000 just off the top. So very important to have that agent represent
experience. Well, Howard Cannon, by the way, Howard Cannon's watching. He just got out of surgery a few days ago.
Oh, man.
Howard, hats off to you. Hope everything's going well with now that you're wearing one eye. You're wearing an eye patch, but you've been wearing your piglet outfit. I think it's a piglet onesie, or is it Eeyore? I forget, but man, there is no bit. He's a dude's dude, and he wears a Eeyore, and is not afraid to show everybody.
That's right, huh?
I mean, I tell you, you have to be a real man to do that. Anyway, number three is, if you're a buyer that wants to see every house in an entire real estate market, and these are real people, by the way, David.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's people that want to see every house out there, and that's just not. It just doesn't matter. I've had agents say that it's going to take maybe 5 houses. I know it takes more than that. I've heard some people say 10 to 20, but you don't want to look at every house on the market. That is true.
I mean, the other problem is if your big why is you want to be in a particular school system. I mean, you sent your kids to a particular school because you and mom liked the school and you chose it for that reason. So
Yeah.
Don't start looking at houses outside of that because it's not going to do you any good. Because guess what? There's not going to be many exceptions.
Right.
It's going to allow you to do that.
Absolutely.
So, all right, next one.
Next, we're getting hung up on the cosmetics. Paint colors, flooring, things like that. Sometimes houses can be in great condition, and obviously that can sell. But, obviously you understand that paint colors can change and flooring and all that kind of stuff. You can get in and make changes to that once you get to the house.
I mean, I talk to you about every other weekend, and you're doing something, right? And
Yeah.
so there's plenty of time as a homeowner you can change that stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, next one's not doing due diligence on a particular neighborhood. Look, there's just some things an agent can't tell you, and one of those is crime statistics. Now, I don't think most agents are going to steer you wrong in terms of if it is an overtly dangerous area, but if you're one of these ultra-sensitive sissies that has to have where there's never been a crime committed and all that, well, you need to do that research if that's what you're worried about, right? Because A, that's non-existent, but B, you need to research that. But also you need to know what are the rules, what are the regulations of the HOA.
Yeah, I mean, the HOA driving through the neighborhood will tell you a lot of things. People parking on the street, neighbors not taking care of the yards, different things. I mean, you can drive through the neighborhood at different times of the day and see the type of people that are in there. You can see the way people leave their houses, what's visible in the yard, stuff like that.
One thing I think folks forget about, too, is they'll see a neighborhood, say like Ross Bridge here in Birmingham that's never done. How is the future construction going to affect? Do your due diligence. Find out, are they going to have to use my road that I'm on to get construction trucks, and then therefore the road gets speed up? And who's going to pay for that? Is the city responsible, that kind of thing? But I did want to mention, I was in your neighborhood the other day. I have no problem finding my way out of your neighborhood anymore.
No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. We've put up about 75 new signs over the last couple of months to help people out, just in case, even though it's mostly residents, so we should know where we're going. We had to add a few
take
signs.
A left to the obvious exit. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you gotta love that.
And we don't have GPSs in cars anymore, by the way. I mean, we don't even have that.
No.
All right,
next one, making a low ball offer.
Yeah, tough, isn't it? Unrealistic low balls are the best. Look, if you're going to low ball somebody, just know that there's a great chance that they get ticked off and they don't respond to you. So you, in turn, don't get ticked off. We see that happen all the time. And in this kind of environment, quite frankly, it just doesn't work where you got low supply, high demand.
Yeah, I mean, you don't want to upset the other side. This is a negotiation. You're not trying to be friends, but at the same time, you are trying to do business. So keep that in mind.
Well, absolutely. And skipping the home inspection, one of the dumbest things that buyers do, really.
Yeah, it's really concerning. Obviously, a home inspection is not required, but either skipping it or having a friend do it. Not sure if that's advised either. You might have a family member. Let's say I know I've had somebody that had their father that's been in the construction business for 30 years. Okay, maybe you trust him to do it. That's fine. But a licensed inspector is going to find the problems. It's their job to uncover everything.
And he has insurance. If he makes a mistake, things happen. And that's why he has insurance. I'm not saying to sue these guys, but I am saying that will be one of their selling points to you.
Absolutely. Next one is not purchasing title insurance.
Yeah, crazy, huh?
Yeah, I mean, you want free and clear title. Obviously, that's a big deal. You don't want anything coming up from a previous owner biting you in the butt later on. So, bad idea to skip that.
Let's be real. Every lender that I know of is going to require, especially under federal guidelines. I assume it's a federal guideline for you guys to be able to sell the mortgages on the open market. But y'all are going to require a lender's policy. So it's really not much more. And quite frankly, it invokes the other splitting of that fee.
Right.
So you might as well get an owner's policy, because we're talking fence encroachments, stuff that would have been found, but hey, there was a mistake made.
True. Yes, very true. So we definitely as lenders have to get the title insurance. So not much extra on that. Not understanding closing costs is the next one. Now I have to say this can be very confusing, but I guess the mistake would be to not ask those questions, which ties into the next one. Not asking questions. I mean, you don't want to just go through this process and not understand everything that's going on. There are a lot of numbers on the page. There are a lot of things getting paid for. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of fees. There certainly are. There's a lot of things that have to go into a real estate transaction, and all those things have to be paid for. But if you just work with a good lender, work with a good real estate agent that explains those things to you, takes time, understands your questions, I think that's a big deal.
I mean, you look at these things. I mean, quite frankly, I see it all the time. We have a lawyer in our office, Ryan Sparks, and I listen to him all the time explaining, no, that's a proration. No, that's a credit to you. He's sitting there, they're not understanding. And they certainly don't come with an open mind, because everybody comes with the idea that you're screwing them, that you're taking money, and he has to explain, no, that's you getting money back.
Yeah.
So ask early and often in the process, I think. And that's one thing I've always valued about your services, is that you've always been good, and it makes you so mad when people don't ask questions. I know that.
Well, yeah, it's just like the example we alluded to earlier about the contract that, when the half attorney, half title is not, look, if your contract says that you're not going to pay it as the seller, that's fine. But I mean, look, that's not standard. Okay. All contracts are half attorney, half title, and you may disagree with me. I mean, whoever's the seller might disagree with me that they need to disclose that and make sure it's understood. But look, I would make sure it's understood. If it's outside of the norm, I would make sure it's understood. Those are two of the things that I really stress is going to be the cash to close and the monthly payment. That's what people are really concerned about. So, that's where we make our money, is taking care of those, making sure everybody understands what's going on, and making sure there are no surprises in those two things.
All right. Ray Williams said hello.
Hey, Ray, how you doing, buddy?
All right. Next one, not budgeting for operational costs of the house.
Yeah. Now this is a big jump from renter to ownership, right? So not knowing or having money to plan the kind of expenses you're going to have for owning a home, right?
I mean, hey, it is funny. That is one of the fun things, because I was there, you were there, we're all there. There's nothing more fun than that 23-year-old that calls you and going, hey, who pays for, there's a plumbing leak. Who do I call? Well, call a plumber and you pay him with your credit card.
Yeah.
You now are in the real world. But by the way, Howard Cannon just said, is that not the key reason, going back to the unexpected expenses and explaining stuff, is that not the key reason to have a real estate agent and mortgage broker that you fully trust? Absolutely. And you know what? There's so many out there, but you have to trust them. Like, you as the buyer or the seller need to make sure you trust the one you're working with.
Yeah, and I think it goes back to information and planning, and just be aware that we could even get into this with down payment options. It might be better to put a little less money down and save for these unexpected expenses. But again, you're looking for advice. A lot of times we have people call us asking about rates, and that's just what people know to ask. But you're really looking for advice. You want help on, are you ready to purchase a home? I mean, and things like this are one of those items that we could bring up and talk about.
Well, the next one is, we see this happen too to a lot of these younger folks, remodeling too soon. I mean, they watch HGTV. It all happens in an hour, and hey, everything goes smooth, and it never goes out of budget. So remodeling too soon.
Remodeling too soon. Yeah, that could be a big mistake. Now, another mistake on the other side is not remodeling at all, and then
Yeah.
you get ready to sell the house, and you got to do all these upgrades at the end to get it sold, but you didn't get to enjoy any of it,
Well,
right?
unfortunately, my wife is mad at me about that. But hey, I have a 9-year-old. Things get destroyed, so
That's right.
hey, that's why it's so nice now that we're remodeling, right, to sell it. But
Contingency plans, right?
absolutely. All right, now this is one that you and I've talked about a lot lately, and we're going to be talking in future episodes about this. Well, kind of we're going to be talking about the market, but hoping to turn a profit, because you know I'm a big believer that a lot of this profit talk out there is phantom profit, because no one wants to talk about inflation and how much we're really making on these houses and whether or not it's really a good investment, that kind of thing. I'm not a bear, but I'm right in the middle, and you're very much of a bull on this. But talk about this.
Well, I think the purchasing a home is sort of like a forced savings account. I still think real estate's going to appreciate. I still think you're going to make money overall. But you're right. If you take into account the expenses on the sales side of it, along with inflation, it's going to take you, some years to actually make a sizable profit, or some money you can actually put in your pocket.
Yeah.
The funny thing
Real
is
money.
real money. A lot of times people will just turn around and put that money back into the next house, which is not a bad thing at all. Because remember, you're still growing an asset. But, this conversation is changing. And it'll be interesting over the next 5 to 10 years to hear it.
Well, and one thing, just so we're clear, we're not saying it's not a good thing, because you got to have a place to live. It's your expectation that you're going into the house and thinking you're going to get rich off the house. If you break even in terms of after inflation, you have that phantom profit that we're talking about. That's okay, because you had to have a place to live, and you need to live. If you're going to live in the world, you need to live in a place you like. And
you own it. Yeah, you own it. It's yours. You make the decisions. You call the shots. So there's benefit to that, right?
Absolutely. And it's a little bit of the argument on the tax issue is overdrawn anyway. I mean, the idea that you lost the tax deduction. Well, if that was your main draw, right? Unless you're ultra wealthy. I mean, we're not talking you make $300,000 a year. We're talking you're making millions a year, and you have a massive mortgage. That's when it was really good, right?
Yeah.
Because you only get a deduction when you pay something, there's that. So anyway, moving on. We're going to talk about one of your favorite things. You're right near Wall Street right now, so let's talk about the stock market real quick.
Matter of fact, I took the subway. Look, some people I'm with are not big fans of taking the subway. I think the subway is entertaining. I mean, you really see the people on the subway, and I had fun with it. I had, interesting, very interesting. Took the subway down to Wall Street yesterday and the New York Stock Exchange and all that stuff. Very cool. It was very cool to see.
Did you see the running of the bulls?
No, I didn't make it down to the Charging Bull, but did walk around the New York Stock Exchange. It was very cool.
Well, I don't want to call myself a stock genius, a stock guru, but there is one bull that's out there, and it's a stock pick that we've talked about every week, and it's called Carvana. That you talked about. Carvana.
Yeah, did you get into it?
No, I didn't, because I keep thinking I'm too late, because when I asked you at $33, $34, you said, well, there's a little trend line here I'm seeing.
Yeah.
And it's probably going to be bucking up against that. Well, we talked about being a bull, and it bulled right on through that line, and now sitting at about $51 a share.
Yeah.
Up 20% since Monday of this week.
Man.
Not your fault. David knows what he's talking about, but
that's just another miss, huh? Really, the entry point was when it broke that trend line. So it did bounce up against that trend line, and it moved up, just like it should after it breaks through a trend line. So
in other words, you make money after it breaks through that trend line.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I know you got, and I know you and I have not had a chance to really talk about it, but my advisor, but great guy, Larry Totha, that's old Ford executive that rely on for some of these stock picks that we give you. Great guy, knows what he's talking about. He gave me one this week, and it was Ares. I don't know how it's ARES Capital Corporation, which is ARCC. ARCC.
Is the symbol?
Yeah, it's a closed-end fund like we've talked about before, trading around $17, $18 a share. However, it pays over 9% dividend. And,
yeah, nice.
And in this market, I mean, it'll protect you from, because I'm hearing a lot of people that are listening to the naysayers in this market, and they're going, well, it's too late now, right? But they're the same people that have been saying it's too late now and missed the entire run-up of 17, right?
Yeah. I mean, you're never going to, we say it all the time, you can't time the market. It's whether or not you have time to stay in the market. It's just like Carvana. I mean, if you can watch it every day, if you can see it break that trend line and get into the trade, then do it. But otherwise, most people have other jobs. They have other things they're doing, and they're not watching stocks every day. If you've got time to put your money into stocks and let it sit and grow, then you're going to win, regardless of if it's January 2017, January 2018, or March of 2019. So whether you were in it then or in it now, if you got time, you're going to make money. So I would go with that.
Absolutely. One thing I wanted to mention, we've talked, David and I talked about closed-end funds. We talked about with PCI, if you have PIMCO fund a few weeks ago. To clarify what a closed-end fund is, basically, is there's a limited number of shares that are issued, just like a stock of Carvana. There's a limited number of shares that trades on a daily basis, but it's more like a mutual fund that, if y'all don't know, a mutual fund is assessed every day, once a day. You buy or sell a mutual fund once a day. And that, because at the end of the day, they come up with the stock or the mutual fund price for the day. Unlike a mutual fund, a closed-end fund is trading all day. And generally speaking, is able to pass on a lot of those, it's good and bad, the tax liabilities or the expenses that go with it, or the profits ultimately, and they pass that back to you in the form of a dividend. So you don't see the Carvana type movement, but you also are protecting that downside. So if you're somebody that wants to get in the market, but wants to make sure that, hey, I really don't want to lose all this money, go ahead and put it in something like this or PCI, because whatever you're going to get, whatever you're going to lose in stock value, like last year, I lost about 8% in stock value on that PCI, but I made about an 8.5% dividend every month. In a year where people were losing 8, 9, 10% of their total portfolio, I was breaking even with that.
Yeah, that's very true. And that's an annual dividend. And so if obviously you got to watch the stock price, but when the value drops, you have that positive dividend to offset those losses like you're talking about.
Yeah, very little fluctuation in. Decent investments, just watch it. Medical Properties Trust, MPT, is another one. I think is their ticker, but Birmingham based, and they do invest in hospitals. They pay about a 5.5% dividend. So I like them as well. But any other stock picks you got this week?
No, not this week, man. What I've been looking at is VOO, which is a S&P index. It's a Vanguard S&P 500 index. We talked about Warren Buffett last week wanting his money in the S&P. He's really just saying, look, bet on America. Put your money in the S&P 500, and American businesses are in there. They're going to make money, and you don't have to worry about owning an individual stock. You don't have to worry about the founder of Facebook getting in the news doing something stupid and shares go down. Right? You've got you're spread out. You're owning different percentages or small percentages of different stocks in the S&P 500. So it's diversified, lower risk, but you're betting on an American business and making money.
And one thing I would say is that Twilio, TWLO, that you and I've talked about, that are the only game in their industry that has run up almost 300% this year, or 280% or something like that since the beginning of last year, still has legs. It pulled back a little this week. So if you're looking for an entry point in there, it's not going to make that kind of money, but it may be a good entry point for you.
That sounds good. I'll take
All
a
right.
look at it.
All right. We will be back next. David will be back here in Birmingham at the world headquarters of the Real Estate Happy Hour. But don't
The
forget to
world
check out
headquarters.
the world headquarters.
Yes.
Don't forget to check out our podcast, which is found the Real Estate Happy Hour. Just search it anywhere you find great.
Pod.
Anywhere you find great pod. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, all those great things. Download it, listen to it on your ride to or from work. I mean, what's better than listening to these charming guys?
That's right. You guys have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week.
All right, man. Have safe travels.
All right. Thank you.
See ya.